Poštovani gledatelji, dobar vam dan. Pratite emisiju Balkan u Europi. Ja sam Ivana Dragičević.
Ja sam Borjan Jovanovski. Gledate Balkan u Europi, ovoga puta posvećen izbjegličkoj krizi.
A izbjeglička kriza, čini se, ostavila Europu bez odgovora svakoga dana. Svjedoci smo slika poput ovih. A s nama su danas i naši gosti. Tu je gospodin Sanel Huskić, public policy analyst, recently focusing on migration and president of the new think tank called New Policies. You're really into this subject very much, so looking forward to talking to you today.
I have honor to present the only lady as our guest, Madam Lochbichler Barbara, co-chair of the subcommittee for human rights.
And with us we have Mr. Davor Ivo Stier. He is the chief coordinator of the EPP group, the largest group in the European Parliament on the issue of development policies. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
So let's start with Sanel. Mr. Huskic, could you please, to start this program, could you give us your assessment about what's happening right now in the Balkans? Hungary closed the border, and in the last 48 hours, almost 6,000 refugees are redirected towards Croatia. So what's the situation right now?
You summed it up pretty much. As soon as one border is closed, the refugee will find another way. It's like a river of people only. If you build a dam, they'll find a way to reach the final destination. So at the moment, we are seeing that the alternate route is being forged as we speak through Croatia. And it's going to be very interesting to see the numbers of the people in next days, because I believe they will gradually increase, because we haven't seen the peak, considering how much people are still located in Serbia, Macedonia, even Greece, and potentially in the other areas. We can even speak about broader areas such as North Africa and Middle East, and the numbers go up to the millions. So the thing is that at the moment we are seeing just a part of the wave that will go on for quite a bit, some time. And the most unsettling thing is, as you already mentioned, is that the European Union as entity has not came up with a proper response yet. So what we are seeing now are ad hoc happenings of the individual states. Hungary is resorting to wall building. Austria and Germany are suspending Schengen's. Spain is altering its laws on the asylum. So it goes on and it goes on. What we need at the moment is a very clear and organized response from the united Europe.
That's exactly the point. I have a question for both of you, because European Parliament had voted for the extension, if I may say, of the quota system. So is this possible? We see how many people voted for, how many voted against, how many people were abstained, but basically probably the European Council will be held Tuesday. Is this united European response possible at this moment, considering the scenes we are witnessing?
Well, I guess the European response is the only alternative that we really have. And this refugee crisis, if it's proven something, is that without the European response, we are seeing, unfortunately, inadequate responses. What we are seeing, these images that we were portraying, are just symptoms of the lack of a common European response. And that's why the European Parliament is taking that part of the leadership in saying we really need a mandatory quota system. We really want to support what the Commission was proposing, and we are expecting now the Member States at the Council to vote for it, to approve it with a qualified majority. We know that there are several Member States that are not inclined to do that, that have been blocking so far this decision, but this is a necessary decision. This is the moment where we really need to prove that we are able to cope with this. Of course, to protect the citizens, to give protection also to those who are in need. This is very important to say. We need to manage our borders, but we cannot do it if are going with member states with their own response that is not coordinated. We really need here a common European answer to this crisis as an emergency measure. And then we also, of course, need to address the root causes. And here is where the development policy, but also our foreign security policy should be far more active.
But at this moment we have both things going on. Deadlock of European institutions, European decision-making process. We have huge humanitarian crisis all over Europe, from Greece to Germany and north, and we need fast response for the latter one. So how can this be dealt with?
Well, first let me extend, and I'm not from the region, I'm from Germany. In the German news this morning, I heard Serbian police, how they were handling an aggressive situation at the Serbian-Hungarian border, and they did it with intelligence and peaceful means and calmed down the crowd. So congratulations and thank you to the Serbian police. And second, I would like to thank also the Croatian government by announcing yesterday that they facilitate the refugees who are in great need to come to the European Union, that they will not select them according to their religion or according to the skin color. So I think these are very positive, very pro-European and civilized reactions of a humanitarian crisis.
Yeah, but already we have a problem.
And if I may say so, the pictures you just show, that a member state of the European Union neglects the basic principles of humanitarian aid cannot be accepted. It is another thing to criticize the Dublin system, which we criticize alike. This Dublin system to sending back the refugees where they entered the European first didn't work. It didn't work before years, yeah? And we have to profoundly reform this. Unfortunately, this is not one of the suggestions which Mr. Juncker put forward or are discussed. Now, in addition, we have a situation where 2 weeks ago, the German Conservative Chancellor made a very humane decision by accepting those people who are extremely exhausted to take them in. And I think we have the capacity, all of us in the European Union, to give the first aid and humanitarian aid to those people. If our region cannot do this, which region in the world should do that? And what is relevant, I would say, for your region now is we had, the day before yesterday, a discussion with the UNHCR Chief Executive Guterres, who was very disappointed that the Ministers of Interior postponed their meeting to October, couldn't agree even on the lousy number of 120,000 people to propose that they are responsible for them and how to distribute them. And he says now, you cross the border as a reaction, what will happen to Serbia? And what we see now, which I think is a good thing, at least, it's bad in politics, but at least for the first aid, we are going to reshift the budgets of the European Union. We had a session this morning where we looked into our financial instruments, and clearly it says that the countries of the Western Balkans and Serbia must have an immediate financial support to do the basic things.
But it looks like that Western Balkans is not so big problem, having in mind the attitude of Hungarian government. Everybody, almost everybody here in the European Parliament are criticizing attitude and decision taken by the Orban's government. Do you have any idea how to address concretely this problem? Because we are talking about the member states.
Well, that is in the system.
For example, to invite Mr. Orban in your subcommittee for human rights to discuss some of the basic issues, because
I think Mr.
we are talking about the basic values.
I think Mr. Orban would already feel insulted to be invited to a subcommittee and not to the main committee, because the experience we have with the president of Hungary in the past was also his attitude, that how he respects or not respects the functioning of the European Parliament. Usually when he was criticized by being very neglectant to the right of the free media, or how he treated the Roma ethnic minority at home, and whenever there was criticism from the European side, being it the Parliament or the Commission, and at one point he was called to come to the European Parliament, you should look at his attitude. When he came home, he basically reported back home that he defended the interest of the Hungarian people and was not addressing the subject we are discussing. So far to Hungary, but the problem we have in the European Commission is that if a member state develops regressive, does not value the how can I say, the values we have or the rules, we don't have a mechanism, for example, to start a process of disinviting a country. We had only one.
At least to expose. For example, what about the situation within your family? I'm talking about the European People Party. I mean, you are talking to
Orban.
Anytime about the European values. That's in the core of your family, of course. So. Have you any intention to invite him or to expose him publicly about?
We definitely can say the following, and this is something we can agree in viewing or in disagreeing in the way the government of Viktor Orban has been handling this situation. But we also need to admit that every time he was invited to the European Parliament, he came actually to the Parliament and he really debated with the parliamentarians. I think that what we are seeing here is actually the symptoms of the lack of European leadership. I'm not saying that this is something cannot be solved. I hope it will be at the council meeting on the 22nd of September. And this is exactly the way we should proceed with the council decision.
But what I'm saying,
what I'm saying is,
which is not
absolutely, and we are really proud. We are really proud about what Angela Merkel said. We are really proud about what President Juncker said at the Parliament. I think he said very clearly, from a Christian democratic perspective, we are here to be and to give a hand to those who are in need. Regardless if they are Christians, if they are Muslims, or if they have no religion, if they're in need, we really need to do that. Look, I think this is something that we should not put in contradiction also in managing well, of course, our borders. These two things should not be put one against the other. We need to do both things at the same time. And here is the challenge. But I'm sure that Europe has the ability to cope with that challenge if we are united. I think if we want to be critical, the best criticism was, in my view, said by President Juncker. He said, we are in a European Union where we are seeing actually that we are lacking union. And we are lacking, if you want, a European spirit. This is exactly the way we need to proceed now. More European values and more union in the European Union. If we come up with a common solution, and I think that the first step is to pass this in the Council on the 22nd of September, we will be on the right track finally to start to show the leadership that is needed to manage the situation.
And how to be operative at all in this construction.
If I can just come back on 2 points. First, it's good that the European Union is actually thinking about Western Balkans, if nothing else, in terms of money, if nothing else. But that's not enough. The capacities of the Western Balkan countries to actually deal and cope with this kind of calamity, if you will, are limited, as we all know. That's the first point. The second point is regarding Mr. Orban. I completely agree. The lack of European leadership actually pushed these countries to actually resort to different kind of things. But that does not sanction Hungary and Mr. Orban from being what he is at the moment. Hungary is doing things like that are unspeakable in European terms. And the biggest problem at the moment is not will he come or will he not come. The biggest problem that the European Union is facing at the moment is to actually demystify, and you can do it right away, who these people are, refugees. They're not terrorists. That's the thing. And everybody, including Hungary, has a responsibility to actually do this. The history will judge Hungary for what they're doing at the moment. I have no doubt about it.
And we have a moral obligation towards the refugees.
That's Europe
true. That should be said.
Okay, but to defend the Christianity in this way, defending the values of Christianity means solidarity also. But Orban is saying, I'm defending Christianity, not allowing them to enter Europe.
If we are going to go to some authority to interpret what is Christianity, I would prefer to follow Pope Francis.
Okay, well, so...
That's what he said, the differentiation.
So
how can European institutions, you kind of do something about him?
Well, I also think it is difficult, but we have to act in a more coherent way. Yeah, we should not let that go if the pictures are gone. Secondly, I have to say it is not only the Hungarian president who failed miserably the European values, because the whole, and there was unity actually, unity in the European Union, that our external borders are being completely blocked. The fortress Europe was really closed before 2011, if we look to the Mediterranean. And instead of analyzing in a logical way that the wars who began in the Arab world and the transformation processes in our neighborhood led to many refugees and misery, we did not change the policy, altogether not. And what we had let's say half a year ago, the border of the European Union was the most deadly border in the world. So we altogether failed our own values and the universal values. And now with this drama on our doorstep, with so many people from Syria coming, there is a chance, and Juncker has made the plan, that we have fundamentally changed our attitude. And that is a good chance, I would say. But what I see on the political level now is that we have disunity in changing this fundamental understanding of how we should deal with politics. And we are just at the beginning. And as I said again, with the money, don't play it so small, because there are so many people that I think it is absolutely the European obligation to give more money for the humanitarian needs.
It's not more money, it's about more example. Because, you know, when some people, politicians in Macedonia, are looking what is happening in Hungary, they're saying that's your Europe. What to follow?
No,
I mean, what are the values to follow? So it's a very bad example coming from Europe, from within Europe.
Yes, but just let me finish. I don't know if I expressed myself clear enough. I think the money is needed in big portions because the humanitarian crisis is growing in Serbia because they are blocked there. And we have to actually give basics like hygienic articles, water. The winter is coming. And if also more people are coming in other West Balkan countries and in Greece, we are not prepared at the moment. And when we had the debate with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, he made this very drastically clear. Second term is also that we have to establish better systems to organize the refugees to come in a more systematic way, to register them, that they get, how can I say, help to be distributed then in the different countries. And we have not achieved this week that the governments contributed to take in parts of the 120,000 refugees. So we only agreed not to stop talking talking about it. We postponed the decision to October. So it is important to convince the leadership of Europe in the respective countries that they have really an obligation.
About the leadership,
okay,
yeah.
And just before we continue, just one sentence, and then we will hear some points of Mr. Juncker's State of the Union address. Please.
Yeah, the thing with Europe is that they have no alternative. They have to evenly pick up a tab for this crisis. There is no way of some countries flaking out.
Yeah, or opting out.
You are in, you are out, all in, all out. So there is no way that there is no alternative. The alternative is actually very grim if you think about it. If Europe, for some reason, does not reach a unity at this meeting on 22nd, the aftermath is of grave consequences. First of all, toward the people that are actually fleeing, but toward the West Balkan countries is even maybe greater in the long term, because these people will stop at the wall, which will be at the European Union. They have no place to go. They'll stay for a prolonged period of time trying to find alternative ways, maybe across the Caucasus and Ukraine and Baltic Sea. Like, they will find a way. But I'm trying to say, for example, Bosnia and Herzegovina cannot deal with this. We all know this. Like, it would not take months, it would take weeks for Bosnia to cave in. Mm-hmm. Does the European Union want to actually relive some very recent history in the Balkans? I think not. So I don't know, I know the Europe is very slow, but the crisis is very quick. The solution is right there. It's not even very difficult. Doesn't matter what Visegrad Group wants. It's above them at this point of time. They basically have to go and see the reason. Later on, Europe will have to undo the damage for a long time. The damage is already done. It's not just Hungary, it's European Union. At the moment, the message, I mean, the picture, the perception of Europe is angry white man, very old, shotgun in one hand, Bible in the other hand, protecting his lavish villa of some 8 bedrooms, cellars and fridge full of food, while the neighbor is passing by asking to sleep over in a barn and have a glass of water and maybe a sandwich.
Okay.
So it's going to take a long, long time for Europe actually to redeem itself from this. So that's why I think, as you mentioned, that Hungary, maybe it cannot be sanctioned as a country, but political parties that are actually governing the country definitely can be and should be.
Just before we continue, just to see some key points of the State of the Union address of Mr. Jean-Claude Juncker.
Die Europäische Union ist nicht in einem guten Zustand. Es fehlt an Europa in dieser Europäischen Union und es fehlt an Union in dieser Europäischen Union. This is not a time to take fright. It's a time of humanity and of human dignity. We Europeans, all of us, I thought before the interruption, all of us, we should remember well that Europe is a continent where nearly everyone has at one time been a refugee. We are not talking about 40,000, we are not talking about 120,000, it's 160,000. That's the number Europeans have to take in charge and have to take in their arms. And I really hope that this time everyone will be on board. No poems, no rhetorics. Action is what is needed for the time being. Over time, migration must change from a problem to be tackled to a well-managed resource. To this end, the Commission will come forward with a well-designed legal migration package in early 2016. This is highly important. Migration has to be legalized.
Evo, čuli smo, we heard the main key points of Mr. Juncker's speech. We have the quota system, and we have a large number of people who are here in Europe, which are not in the quota system, but are here to stay because they don't have anywhere to go. So if the quota system is going to be voted on Tuesday, how fast this can be implemented and how well states are prepared at all, for example, Croatia as the newest EU member, non-Schengen country, to accept 1,000+ people, plus deal with this, what we saw, because in the less than 48 hours, there are more than 5,000 people entered Croatia.
This should be and can be implemented actually very soon if the decision is taken, and I really look forward to it. I think that it's again a question where we are now dealing with this emergency about the refugees. It can be dealt effectively only if we are together. We are all together in this boat, and only with this common position and answer we can succeed. Of course, I am not for building new walls in Europe, but I also against finger pointing, because that will not be the solution. We need now to come together and to implement that decision. That's first of all. We need to really show that humanity. Of course, we are aware that, for example, Croatia alone cannot solve this problem. This should be also clear to everybody. Hungary alone cannot do it. Germany alone cannot do it. We need to do it together. This is very important to understand. And also, we are then addressing the question of the refugee crisis here. But the migration flows is a process that is going to take a very, very long time, because we need to be aware of that. We are just 7% of the global population. In our borders, we have a very volatile situation, wars, violence, dictatorships, and extreme poverty. So, and we have really a booming population in Africa that will be, by 30 years, 25% of the global population. We need to address these issues, and the development policy here is part of the solution. And I'm glad that part of the package that was announced by President Juncker was this emergency trust fund for Africa of 1.8 billion euros, in addition to the fund that we have for Syria. Now, the question is, we have these funds, but we also need these funds not to be drawn only from the European budget. We need the member states also to contribute to it.
But how to deal with situation, because European Union announced in its plan that it need to establish so-called hotspots very fast, Turkey, Jordan, Italy, Greece as entry points, and probably 2 countries of the Western Balkans, Serbia and Macedonia. But none of them can deal with it themselves. You've mentioned the situation in Serbia and Macedonia. So how fast can Europe do this, not to face this kind of crisis? Please.
If I may. You see, Mr. Juncker presented a good package. And he gave a very emotional and powerful speech reminding us of our history. And Europe in history is not an old man with a Bible. It's the historical experience that the separation from church and state was central for us to flourish and develop. That's also the representation. And we are very colorful. We have different religions. We have a huge population who is not religious at all.
Yeah, but you also have ghettos in Europe. We saw what happened in France, in Britain,
yes, but it's not because of that. Of course, we have right extremism. We have racists, and we have to fight them. If they commit crimes, it's a crime. It's not taken out of concern when they burn refugee homes. We have to fight them by the state. This is a criminal offense. Now, if we look at the package Juncker has presented, the logic of being completely different is not there in all the points. We still, with the plans to create hotspots, we don't know exactly what they should do. If they are there only to register, okay. And also to inform in future what kind of legal migration opportunities for labor migration we have. But if the intention is to outsource the asylum procedures from inside Europe with our standards to protect the right of the refugees to the world outside the EU, I would completely disagree with this, because we have really good standards according to the Geneva Convention, and other states don't have this. And there are plans, for example, to open such hotspots also in Niger or in Morocco, and then if you measure what rights does the refugee have in Morocco, if they go there, what kind of system, what judicial system they have. Many of those countries have not even ratified the Geneva Convention. So I think we as politicians who are in favor of the rights of refugees, and not only see them as a threat to all of our achievements, we have really to focus that we change even more in this historical moment, this wrong policy of a fortress Europe. And maybe that is worthwhile to discuss in another debate here, but we have to look into
too much theoretically and hypothetically. May I ask you, what is going to happen if there is no decision for the quota? Once a Council of Ministers failed, there will be new attempt tomorrow or Tuesday. What is going to happen if there is no decision?
Alternative to actually success.
So what are the consequences?
The consequences
on the ground, in the region.
If I may, Europe basically does not have the alternative to quota system at the moment. This is the quickest way to actually deal with this crisis. Europe has a variety of migration policies, and it's going toward the common asylum system and many others. And it will eventually have a very good system. System is already good, but it's not calibrated for this type of things. So it will change. With these hotspots, it's actually very good to see that Europe is actually doing this in a very rapid manner, and it's actually learning as doing. But they know they have to do something, so it's very good. But alternative to failure of this meeting is none. That's the thing. Because Europe, as we can see now, states are suspending Schengens again. They are building the borders. They're changing the legislatures. They are completely disregarding the basic conventions on human rights and many other things. So the Europe, what we are seeing is it's becoming less and less Europe, as Commissioner said. Yeah. And that's with Europe. Europe will disintegrate, basically, in a long run. More so than this crisis will damage Europe more than financial crisis or the referendum in UK. That's with Europe. The consequences on the Balkan, I will again say, would be grave. Because these people will linger in the Western Balkan region, waiting to find the alternative passages toward the Western Europe. And let me make this very clear. They will find the way toward the West Europe. I was a refugee at one point in my life. And I know what's the desperation that actually drives you. And Europe can accommodate. This is a trivial number of the people compared to the combined population of European Union. This is actually statistically looking a marginal amount. If you have 500 million people living in the European Union and you have 500,000, not even, refugees at this point, it's really, Europe can absorb this. But can it absorb properly? I agree, the system is there and they can take this amount of people relatively very quickly. But will they integrate after what they've been through in a proper way? I'm saying they're not the terrorists at this moment. Like there are people fleeing, but the Mediterranean passage, the rain, the cold, the tear gas, the riot police, the hunger, I mean, these people will be changed. So for the Europe it's basically you will reap what you sow. So it's better to stick to the core values and accept these people. And of course, redistribute them because there is not too many. Europe can actually take this. It's not even a serious
we need your comment.
It's not a serious politics. I just want to underline this. This is European politics.
Okay. Do you think
Nothing else.
There will be an agreement about the quota? Do you think? And do you have any idea
I think it will be a majority and a qualified
many
majority.
of the European countries don't want to accept.
I think it will be a decision by a qualified majority, and that will be enough.
And I hope, you know, what you said is basically known, because it's a logical politics everybody should do.
Yeah, but
if the political leadership of certain governments is ready to shift the whole mentality, that's the question. Of course, we can absorb It's not only Germany because we have good economic figures, but we can easily, I would say, if we want. But if there is not a fundamental switch in the attitude, how we deal with people coming from abroad, and if we continue to see everybody who is a refugee or a stranger is a threat, we cannot. And therefore, I think this needs a little bit time. Yeah, and but I would agree with you. I have a great hope. I'm from the Green Party, not from the Conservatives, but that our leadership at the moment, the German leadership, is very influential usually in the European Union, and that she can explain properly that solidarity is not a one-way street. Then if we are together in a union, so we have to give and to take. And those who says we don't want to be part of this union, who cares about refugees, they also have then to say, face the answer that we don't care about your problem.
That's the question. Do you think that the two-third majority decision is going to resolve what she's saying?
Well, I think that we will have the qualified majority, I hope so, at the council meeting, and that the decision will be approved. It will be mandatory. Of course, we do have countries that have from the past an opt-out, like the UK. I think it will be important also for the UK to show solidarity here, but that's, of course, another question, but let's mention that as well. In any case, I think that the decision will be taken that countries like Croatia should not be left alone.
Besides this, there's a larger issue that is war in Syria that's been going on too long for now. It created this largest humanitarian crisis, Libya situation.
Yeah.
So how to tackle it concerning the fact that Europe still doesn't have its own external policy in that sense to react, and security policy, if we may say, in this.
Well, I mean that we can agree that European Union for a long time actually took a piggyback ride on United States foreign policy. And I think that Europe should honestly reconsider that some other possible avenues where they can forge a common foreign policy. Not only enlargement, but I think that actually mobility it should be one of the EU's foreign policy cornerstones. After all, the European Union is what it is due to actual free mobility. And I think that the foreign policy and the lack of it in countries of Maghreb, North Africa, and Middle East is actually what's happening at the moment. I mean, the European Union's for a long time trying to actually not acknowledge what you mentioned, that we are a fraction of population of this planet, not even 10%. And the demographics are changing. The Africa will in next 40 years double its population to 2.5 billion. The Asia is rapidly growing, while the Europe is really not growing. So the European foreign policy should acknowledge these facts of life. If we want to stay, I mean, the Europe in whole, and I'm including a Western Balkan because it is a Euro. If we want to stay what we have been, and I want to underline that we are not an old guy with a shotgun and a Bible, but we are actually showing the world that we might actually be this. I think the European Union should acknowledge and focus its foreign policy to its immediate neighborhood. And I'm not just saying Western Balkan, but the North Africa, and not just for the sake of these people, but for the sake of European Union, the people that actually live in European Union.
Madam Lochbihler, you're also a member of the Foreign Committee in the European Parliament. Can we expect more engagement of you in the process of resolution of the problem in Syria?
Yes, you can, and not only in Syria. And if you look into the details, already the European Union is in close cooperation with UN coordinator de Mistura to try at least to give in certain cities a ceasefire like Aleppo, and then start with humanitarian corridors. But the question you raised, do we miss something? Let's say it in a nutshell. Do we have to have a European army to solve the problem quicker? I think it is the wrong analysis. A military intervention can only stop something in one place. It cannot solve a problem like this.
Can we partner?
And so it cannot. And I think the strength, in my view, of the European Union lies in being a soft power who can bring people together and who can broker developments. And the other example you gave in Libya. Libya was in, and is to a great extent in chaos. But since last year in December, a European diplomat before, Mr. Leon, now is the coordinator for the United Nations, and they step by step try to form a government of national unity so there can be a functioning state with the police, a border control, and there I think the EU can do more. But they are on, I think this point we do quite well. And I think also to listen to what Mogherini, our so-called foreign minister, said rightly. If we fail so miserably to help the refugees in the basics of humanitarian need, our whole existence and our reputation in the world as being something different, Europe, is at stake. And I think all these smaller countries who disagree with this approach, they should think about what they would be if there is no European Union. Who would care about Germany alone? Who would care about Hungary? None of our member states would be member of the G20 because we are alone, very little states.
But besides this, can Russia, despite the sanctions and the issue with Ukraine, which is still there, now on the side a little bit, but can Russia be the partner of the EU in the case of Syria?
Look, certainly that you cannot ignore the role of Russia, especially in Syria. But I certainly see that it's good that we have soft power, and the EU can be good at that. But I'm afraid that only with soft power we cannot defeat ISIS. And we need to defeat ISIS. So we need to say that clearly. Whether they will that be with our allies in the North Atlantic Alliance or another format, that's of course something to be discussed, but we certainly need to defeat ISIS. That is necessary. But what is also necessary is not to repeat the mistake that was done, for example, in Libya. So we ousted the regime, which was an authoritarian regime of Gaddafi in Libya, yes, but then we left the country to the chaos. There was no development and reconstruction policy afterwards. The soft power was inexistent. So now we are paying also the price for that mistake. We should be aware of that in our foreign and common foreign and security policy. But again, as I said, we need to face this challenge of ISIS. I'm afraid cannot be defeated but only with soft power.
All of our member states are in NATO, so why do we need a double parallel system?
No, I'm not advocating a doubling NATO.
You have 2 more minutes just to finish. Could you please give us your comment about the prejudice in all European countries,
and the narrative, public narrative,
the Western Balkans countries, treating refugees as a terrorist, danger for Christianity, secret army which will enter in Europe and then will occupy Europe. So, do you, as a member of the political party in your country, member of the European Parliament, do you think that it's maybe a time to make a campaign in order to stop those rumors, which are
and stop this destructive narrative
at some point, motivated extreme rights groups?
I think the principle is that you say if you have a closed society, you are in security. Do you think, also not you, but if somebody says all the terrorists will come, do you think that they will come as refugees, or do you think they will take the business class and come as business people or as tourists? Either we live in a global society, and we cannot hinder this. We have to fight terrorism with different means than with a closed society. And if, that is absolutely wrong.
Clarity in concepts is very important. We have refugees. They are escaping from war, and we should be protected because that's international law. It's also a moral obligation. It's different from an economic migrant. Not that we should not address that issue, but these 2 categories are different. That should be said. Second, it's not about defending borders. We are not this is not the language that should be used. We need to manage borders. That's quite different.
Mr. Sanel,
No, I would agree with my colleagues. I'd like to say that Europe is considering all trying to fix the problem. But I think they should also substantially, it's a good question, actually think about demystifying this narrative. And I think that Croatia now is in a historic time and point of its existence to actually do what's right with these people, because they are right there at this, as we speak in Croatia, they need protection, they need guidance. And I think that Croatia will step up to the plate.
Thank you really very much and keep up your good work in this cause. Poštovani gledatelji, pratili ste još jednu emisiju Balkan u Europi. Srdačan pozdrav.
Pozdrav.